patient than powerful. Better to have self-control than conquer a city. Now, I don't know about you, Mr. Dan. Do you remember this? I don't know about you, Mr. Dan, but I think I would rather, it doesn't want to go. I think I would rather conquer a city like an Avenger or something. But the proverb says that it's better to have self-control. Everybody say self-control. All right, we've been talking about emotions.
Pastor Jody,
yes,
it's easier to say have self-control sometimes
than to have it. Than to actually have it.
I don't use
It's
it long
true.
enough to know that's true.
It's true. And I didn't get to say one thing. Can you guys give my one of my favorite people, Mr. Dan, a round of applause?
Really?
So, Mr.
Really?
I know.
Watch this.
I tried to make it.
How do you guys like the 49ers? Let me hear you. What? How do you like those, Mr. Dan?
So you're saying you're getting the same round of applause as the 49ers?
At least those
Okay,
guys
all
are
right.
terrible.
Oh, ouch. Ooh. Ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for Mr. Dan. All right, so we've been talking about emotions. Now, if you know the answer to my question, what do? Raise your hand. All right. We do want to give out mad points. I heard the boys were killing it this morning on the first line up, which is why I need this, boys. We need a win. I would like some cotton candy or something at the end of the series. Girls, sit back, relax. You don't have to answer any questions today. All right, here we go. If you know the question, raise your hand. If you don't know the answer, you don't want to answer, make sure you're not talking. I don't want you to distract your neighbor from hearing what God has for them today. So, we're talking about emotions. Have we been saying emotions are good or bad? Who knows? Raise your hand.
Boys, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Good or bad?
All right, we've been saying they're good. The emotions, God gave us emotions. He made us that way, and they're good things, but we need to learn to what?
Ladies, what do you say, girls? 1, 2, 3.
Control. That's our word that we use. Everybody say self-control. Self-control. Week number 1, what emotion did we talk about?
Joy!
Joy is correct. Right, we talked about joy. Week 2, what did we talk about? The opposite. That's not quite close. Sadness is correct. Sadness. And then after sadness, week 3, what did we talk about? Fear. No. Try to make the head.
Yes, Anger!
Anger is correct. And then after anger, we talked about what?
Boys, what do we talk about after anger?
Fear. Fear, that's right. Fear. Not being afraid. And then last week, what did we talk about? Disgust. That is correct. All right, so today we're going to talk about something a little different. We're going to talk about curiosity. Anybody ever watch Curious George when they were a kid, or watch the show, or read the books? Yeah. The Man in the Yellow Hat. Curious George. Davis likes Curious George. Like kids are curious. It's just the way that you're made. You guys like to ask questions. And I've got a little 3-year-old, Davis. And guess what question little 3-year-olds like to ask? Why?
Wait, I didn't even know that. You guys never use that word, do you?
All of you at one point in time used to ask, why? Right? So I was looking at something, and I actually just ran across this. So I thought it was great. It's a dad and a girl, and she won't stop asking why. I think she was asking why she needs to drink her milk. So asking questions isn't the only thing about curiosity. I also like doing things you've never done before. Is there anybody here you say, I love trying new things? Anybody? I like to try new things. Is anybody in here that you like to try to eat new things? You like to? Yes. You guys are curious still. I know because I have to know when you live in my house. They're called children. Jada's on YouTube literally every single day looking up ways to cook things, like new crafts to make new ways to do things with her dolls, new ways to do makeup and hair. Her little cousins come over and show like a little fashion show. It's ridiculous, right? She's always learning new stuff. Asher's the same way. He's always asking me how things are made, how they're built, how does this work, right? Anybody do that? Yeah. In fact, you can start rolling this, but about 2 years ago, Asher wanted to build a wishing machine or a time machine. He kept asking me, Dad, can we please build a time machine? And I was thought to myself, I've never built a time machine. Not really sure how to do that. So he said, well, I want to build a time machine and a wishing machine. So he had an idea. I had no idea what it was, but he was curious and he wanted to look it out. So he came up with an idea, started drawing out some drawings for it. We went to I think it's going to show it here in just a second. We went to a plain junkyard and found some awesome equipment and instruments. And we actually built the wishing machine. It still sits in my garage 2 years later. So, but I let Jada help design and put together. How many of you saw the wishing machine at Splat Week? Anyone? Anybody get to go inside of it? And when it was in the lobby? Yeah. So that was actually Asher's wishing machine that he built. Him and Jade actually built it together. That was his. So he put it together. We repainted it for Splat Week so it would match everything. But he did that. We helped him do it. It was all on his own because he got curious. Like, hey, can I build a time machine? Asher's first wish, I'll tell you this, like you're wondering, does it work? Asher's first wish was that we would get to go to Disney World. And 8 months later, we went to Disney World. I don't know if it works or not. But so maybe ask him if you can make a wish, and he'll have to figure it out, let you know. But there's a man in the Bible, there's a great story in the Bible about being curious, okay? There's a guy named Jonathan, and he is an Israelite, and they're in Israel. Now, the problem is during this time, there's a group of people that have come in and taken over the land. Who remembers the group of people when David fought Goliath? What was Goliath? He was who remembers? He was he's a giant, and he was what was his nationality?
So big ass dude.
He was a giant, and he was a nationality too. What was his nationality? What nation was he from?
I feel that there's not going to be hard. I feel this is going to be hard. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, that's right. He was a Philistine. Now, here's the deal. All during that time, here's the nation of Israel, and all the Philistines were coming in and taking over their land. They sent in their armies, they sent in their best warriors like Goliath, and they came to take over Israel's land. Well, they kind of got sick of it. King Saul was getting sick of it, so they had gathered together their army. The problem was, because there were so many Philistines, a lot of the Israelites' armies kind of were leaving their army and joining the Philistines because they were scared of the Philistines. Well, King Saul ordered the men to just stay there, not do anything right now. And Jonathan is actually Saul's son, so Jonathan one day will be the king. Jonathan is kind of like, what are we doing? Just sit there. We need to do something. He gets curious, and so he picks up and leaves. He brings his armor bearer with him. He's going to sneak out of camp, and he's going to encounter the Philistines, and he's going to give kind of a little test and let God, and see what God does. It's kind of cool what he does. He throws it out there. We're going to watch the story, and then I'm going to ask you questions. Pay close attention, because we're going to see what happens with Jonathan. He gets a little curious. He asks God to help him, and something awesome happens. So pay attention. We'll talk about it later.
Jonathan,
that's right. And someone's with him. Who is with him?
girls, what do you think?
The Lord. Right, that's right. The Lord is with him. Very true. And he has someone else with him.
Who else is
I
with
love
the
that. That's
boys?
a great answer, yeah. The
Yes,
Lord
sir.
is with him, yeah.
It's Beryl, you say? It's Beryl.
This armor bearer, very good. To bear, everyone know that bear something means to hold something, to bear something. Armor bearer, so he's the guy that, because he's the prince, like going to be the king. So he has a guy that carries his like armor and helps him, right? He's kind of his helper. So he takes his helper with him. They get out. Now keep in mind, at this time, Philistines are everywhere, and the Philistines are in a huge camp, not too far from here as well. So you have the Israelites camping, but then you have the Philistines that are at this huge camp. And they've taken over the land. And Jonathan's like sick of it. We're going to do something. So the Philistines are over here, David's here, and they're walking. And they come into a group of Philistines, and there's like 20. We know there's around 20 of them, because when it's all said and done, 20 of them are gone. They defeat 20 of them. So there probably was more, because I'm sure some of them ran out. But they see them, and they're up on these two cliffs. Right? There's these two, the path that Jonathan's armor are taking, and there's cliffs, right? They're probably up there because I'm sure they could like shoot arrows at whoever attacked from the top. They walk through, and he comes up with a plan. He's not going to wait till he's got a lot of people. He's not like waiting for the army. He's like, let's do this now. Let's see what God can do. I love this attitude. It's awesome. Because it's what the other people are like, right? It's like what we're talking about, curiosity or the why or the how does this work or what. Jonathan has this curiosity. He's like, let's see what God just might do. And he turns his arm around and says, let's do this. Let's get their attention. And then when they see us, two things are going to happen. If they tell us to stay there, they look and say, stay there, we're going to come and get you. What did Jonathan say that they would do if he said that? Yes, right there. Yep. He said if they say stay there, what was he going to do? What was the plan? Yeah, they're going to stay there. They're just going to wait.
Stay there, okay?
But remember, he was like, let's just see what God might do, right? Now keep in mind, there's only 2 of them, and there's more than 20 of them. That doesn't sound like a good fight to me. If I was at school, and there was like 20 guys over there, they're all hanging out, I would walk up and say, hey, who wants to fight? Like, okay, I'm just joking, guys, right? But Jonathan wants the Philistines out of their land, and he knows that God's on his side. He wants to help his people. And so he says, if they tell us, come up here, what did Jonathan say they were going to do? They would fight him. I love it. Jonathan didn't even he wasn't even like, if God sends me 400 soldiers, then we'll know that we're supposed to fight. He just said, if this happens, us 2 are going to go fight more than 20 people. I love this faith. What was our big idea? We got to introduce our big idea. Our big idea is I won't have. Yeah, that's right. I won't have. Did Jonathan have faith? Yeah. He just left it in God's hands. And so they walk up, and the Philistines, what did the Philistines tell them to do? Who knows? Let's fight. So they tell him to come up. Yeah, they're like, come up here, you dogs. We want a piece of you, right? And Jonathan's like, yeah, right? Because he knows, he put it in God's hands. Like, if they tell us to come up, then we know that God has given them to us. That's pretty gutsy. Man, that's some faith. I love that about Jonathan. He's ready to go, and so they go. They even have to climb the cliff to get there. I would have been too tired to fight by the time they got up there. And you know what I love too is his armor bearer the whole time never was like, why don't you just go? I'm just going to stay here and make sure everything's good. He's like, he tells him, he's like, whatever you want to do, you got me. Let's do it. They go up together, and it says that the 2 of them destroyed 20 of the Philistines. We don't know what happened. We do know that some of them escaped. They had to. They took off running 22 versus 20, and they win. But that's not even the end of the story. The cool part of the story is this. It's not only did they defeat the Philistines, but it started this little ripple effect. It says that the Philistines ran back to their camp, and they're so afraid because they just saw 2 guys beat up 20 guys. And they're scared. They're like, this is not good. God's on their side. It says they run back to the Philistine camp like, you won't believe it. These two guys, and now 20 of us, and they kicked our ass. Right? And it says the whole camp starts in a frenzy, and they all start going crazy. Well, Saul and the Israelites hear about it, and they get their camp. They're like, now's the time to attack. They're going crazy. And it says that they come, and the Philistines, and when they get there, the Philistines were actually in such a frenzy that they started fighting each other. They started fighting each other. It says that the people, as I said earlier, that had left, Israelites, to go to help fight with the Philistines, they leave the Philistine army, and they join the Israelites. It says the people that were living out hiding in the woods and caves actually come out. They join. So now Saul's got 10,000 plus men. It says they go in, and the Philistines are fighting and killing each other. How awesome is that? They start fighting each other, and it says that they all start running away, and the Israelites chase them out of Israel. How amazing is that? But it all started with one person, Jonathan, that was curious to see, let's see just what God might do. Jonathan was full of faith. And because of what he did, he said, hey, let's just see what God might do. It's something awesome. He goes, invites like 20 people, and now the whole army is defeated because Jonathan had faith in God. See all the little things you do throughout your day? You never know what God might do. You may think something seems very small, but it has a huge effect. So all the little things during your day, maybe you help someone, maybe someone needs help, maybe your teacher needs help, maybe someone is bullying someone else and you need to stand up for them. Or maybe someone's gossiping about someone else. They're like, oh yeah, that girl, see what she wears, she's so right? And you might speak up and be a little bit bold and be a little bit brave and say, hey, you know what, we probably shouldn't talk about her behind her back because that's not very kind. And you never know what might happen. Because see, when you're doing those things, you're doing them because in your heart you know that they're the right things to do. Jonathan felt like he knew what the right thing to do was. And God had his back. See, when we stand up and we do the right things to love people and take care of people, God has our back. And you never know what that little thing might turn into. For Jonathan, that little thing ended up defeating the entire army that had been taken over their land. So every little thing that we do in faith can have a huge effect. So this week, I want you to think about the little things that you do. And in your heart, in your mind, that curiosity, when you ask these questions, those kind of things can grow into God things. You say, God, what might you do today? God, what if I did this? What might happen? What if I help this person? Think something awesome could happen? So everybody stand up quietly. Everybody stand up. We're going to respond to this at a time of prayer. And as we go into our time of prayer and worship, I want you to think to yourself about faith. God, do I have faith in you? God, this week, could we do something awesome